Welcome to the Non-Essential Podcast. I'm Steve Gibson.
I'm Ben Matlock, and this time we're going to do this really slowly.
The exciting conclusion, or at least a temporary conclusion to this Game Fuel thing. I can't imagine you picking up any of the other flavors that weren't in the
No, we're not.
crate.
We're not going to do fucking orange. Not unless, I'm not paying for it, if nothing else. I just opened this can. God damn it, dogs. We just started. Shut up.
Well, they could sense the evil. You know how there's like if there's a ghost in the house, pets can sense it. When you open that can, their dog was like, something's wrong.
Oh no. Yeah, I opened this can and I sensed something was wrong because I smelled it from pretty far away. This is the blue Game Fuel. This is our thrilling conclusion to the Ben reviews. Whatever the fuck this is.
A drum roll on my desk there.
I got it. I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. It's been a fun ride. So my hierarchy so far, it's been from worst to best has been green, red, and yellow. And yellow and red are kind of interchangeable, but I think it's not as strong, so it's a little more drinkable. This is the blue one. It's a charged berry blast. And a friend gave me a Mega Man energy drink for my birthday a few years ago.
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
And I think I drank it on our old show, the video game podcast. And this smells a lot like that.
You did not like that at all either. So.
And also a little bit like Pepsi Blue.
I don't remember Pepsi Blue.
It smells like this. And I remember it was like kind of fucking gross. Like it was really sweet, so when I was really little I liked it, and then like I got a bottle that was like fucking disgusting and I could never drink it again.
Yeah.
That one's not bad.
See, that's what like I said, I wanted to hold on. Blue's my favorite, but I'm one of these people too that freely admits if you make your drink or your candy or whatever blue, I automatically like it has to be
I'm more
awful.
likely to enjoy it. I'm the same way.
Yeah.
This one's kind of weird. It almost tastes like it's supposed to be berry flavored, but I feel like I taste like gum.
You reminded me, there's a comedian I've been seeing his bits on Twitter where he reviews very cheap. He pretends to be a sommelier and reviews very cheap, like, gas station wine. And then it's always things like he'll take a sip and be like, gym socks in the summertime, you know, that kind of thing. And that's what it kind of felt like when you said, it tastes like gum.
It does a little bit. I don't know. Like, that one's not bad, but it also, like, there's
it's
something
not good enough to just,
like
intentionally buy it,
about
though. So gummy, toothpastey.
Like, none of these adjectives are really selling it. I understand, but I do mean it's probably one of the better flavors.
Yeah, I'd put it at the top of the list.
Yeah,
and then I'd probably put all the other three like tied at the bottom, but yeah, I mean, you could probably give me like antifreeze, and as long as this is a blue colored antifreeze, I'd be like, Although that's supposed to be delicious, supposed to be sweet. That's why people use it to poison people. But
so I guess my big takeaway from this Game Fuel thing, if there's anything, is like I don't know what the fuck this is for.
Yeah.
Because it's not an energy drink, really.
No.
It's not soda.
It's for people that want 2 sodas, but don't want to drink 2 sodas.
But it's like, it's not even carbonated. So it's like we talked about, it's kind of their shitty attempt at juice. And, and it's like, this isn't how juice works. Like, and like the only thing they know about gamers is that they need sugar, apparently.
Yeah. I think that is, you just hit on the key, is that they were just like, I don't fucking know, make it sugary, and gamers put gamer on the fucking thing. And
yeah, if there's a dumb Call of Duty guy with a 2XP code on it, then people will buy it. And, you know, hell, throw in a free video game skin so some guy who's almost 30 but still thinks he's, in his teens will, just have a fucking midlife crisis and review this shit on his podcast.
See, if it was up to what they should have done, because Mountain Dew, I don't hate Mountain Dew. I almost never drink it because it's just like,
at a certain point, it's like,
you can almost chew it. It's so sugary. Like, yeah. But that means that they're already 99% of the way there to like a game fuel, just like up the caffeine level. In my opinion, the other problem with Mountain Dew, it's just less of a problem than what the Game Fuel has, is that it's technically carbonated, but I think it could be more carbonated. So like amp up the carbonation and the caffeine in a regular Mountain Dew, and there's your fucking Game Fuel. Like that's all they needed to do.
Well, the thing is, like, they have that. That's what's also confusing about this is Mountain Dew does have a goddamn energy drink option. It's amped. And
that's true. I forgot that's...
And amped is actually, like, it's that same thing. It's very sugary, so I don't have them often, but I do have them occasionally, and there's a lot of different flavors of that. They're all fucking better than this. So again, this promises alertness, accuracy, and vitamins A and B. I just see sugar. All I felt from this is sugar.
So they're trying to sell it as like the health game drink.
Putting vitamins on this should be like a fucking crime.
Wouldn't that be like grinding up some Flintstones chewables and putting them in your cocaine and saying, well, this is the good cocaine for you. Like it's got vitamins
that would probably be healthier than this.
And probably make you better at Call of Duty than Game Fuel. Like
probably. I feel like everything gets to cop out and be like, hey, we have vitamins in it. It's like everything has vitamins in it nowadays. Like that's, at a certain point, it doesn't matter like that you have more A and B in you. Like your heart's still stopping.
Yeah, but at least you're a healthy corpse.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know if I like that better than yellow or not. I'd probably tied in my book because there's a lot of flavors going on in this one too. But I don't know.
The thing for me is it gets disappointing because, again, for the 8th week in a row, it feels like I mix mine with booze. Mm-hmm. But when you mix a blue drink with booze, and it kind of gives me that like impression it's going to be like a blue margarita, which is one of my favorite drinks. It is not a blue margarita. You take a sip and it's like, this is sugar and booze.
Adding booze to this, I feel like I was drinking something from Mass Effect.
Yeah, well, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, yeah.
That's how they should be selling this. This should be in the mixer aisle.
You need one of those like kind of cheesy glasses that has like an LED light in it to light it up, and
but that's the thing. Like, I'm never gonna buy this shit again. Like, it's we've tested it now. A lot of it's fucking gross, but also like you can't get it in stores where I live. Really,
it's everywhere here.
So I'd have to keep buying it online, and I refuse to do that.
Well, and here's the kicker, and I don't know, and I don't really care. You don't have to disclose what the case cost, but for a Game Fuel here, I want to say it's like $3.30, or like I'm picturing $3.29 in my head for some reason, which is oddly specific, which is a lot of money to pay for a very subpar drink, like for a single can.
So we'll say it's $3. And I got a 12-pack. So what I spent on it was like $22 or something for a 12 count for a pack.
Seems about right.
So it's better
$3
than
a can
if you bought an individual, because that would be like 36.
Right.
So,
but that seems like the kind of break in my head that I picture it getting if you buy it in a case. But
yeah, and
it might not be quite $3, but it's not cheap. It's and of course I'm still fucking skewed from growing up in the '90s, where you could get like a 20-ounce bottle of pop for like 75 cents.
Yeah.
So part of it is every drink you buy by its own. To me, I'm too old, and I'm like, that's highway robbery. Whatever that is. Wobbly.
Shut up, Elmer. Shut up, Elmer. Give me your shit. Anyway, so that was fun. Well, if you have any other bad drinks that I should review on this show, DM me. I'll find it.
Be careful. This will get, and I'll make it quick because we need to get to the topic. But this will highlight how nerdy me and my friends were in high school. We didn't
Somebody just sent me a bottle of absinthe.
Well, we didn't drink alcohol. Like, I didn't start drinking until college. So like in high school, one of the things that we did, like, especially our like junior and senior years, it was always just hanging out at friends' house. There was like a group of 4 or 5 of us, and we were just always hanging out. We played paintball and that kind of stuff. But one of the things that we decided to start doing is we made a challenge. We'd go out and we'd just go to like a random gas station, and we'd each pick out what we thought would be the worst tasting drink. Like, it had to be, you couldn't mix shit. That'd be cheating, but you had to get something that was meant to be drank.
Yeah.
And then we'd go back and we'd try them out. So we spent like a whole summer just breaking down awful drinks, and there's some really fucking bad drinks out there. Yeah. But
that's fun, I don't want to sit on the bench in this life. I drank a bunch of bullshit.
And who wants to be the pretentious asshole that's looking for the best of something?
Yeah, I mean, there's time and place for that. But when you're hanging out with friends and you all see each other as equals, it's not a good night until somebody's trying to destroy themselves.
Right.
Somebody has to go lower so the rest of the crew may elevate. Anyway, so when we're not, drinking fucking weird shit from the internet, this is the Non-Essential Podcast. We tell each other stories. I have a story, and I ain't stopping until I tell it.
Well, good.
I wasn't after these messages.
Drink game fuel, it'll make you more observant or something, and accurate.
Get a bit of a sugar rush. You might get diabetes. Don't get diabetes. So Kair Adin, Arouge, Ilias, and Ishak were 4 brothers born between 1466 and 1478. They were born in Greece to an Albanian / Turkish professional cavalryman and an unorthodox Christian mother with Greek roots.
Professional cavalryman, because that implies that there's amateur cavalrymen.
Well, I mean, depending on the war, the Revolutionary War was fought with amateur cavalrymen for sure.
Touche.
Their father had taken part in the Ottoman conquest of Lesbos in 1462, and his performance earned him his own small village of Benova, which was a little island all his own. Their father, which means he had to have been a crack shot. He must have just been mowing down people in that.
Or it was a really crappy island, and they just wanted to get rid of him.
He was so bad. He shot so many of his own men. It was just cheaper to send him to an island.
They're like, here, you get an island. Have fun.
Their father had become an established potter on the island and purchased boats to facilitate trade of his products from his island. So he was trying to settle into a small, quiet life, but the business actually kind of took off, due in large part to his children as they got older. The brothers became very active seamen, engaging in trade and following international affairs closely. This meant they could get a lot done for the family business, but it also meant they became very tapped into all the goings-on of the sea, and so far as the international scale of who was at war with each other, where were pirates, known to be sort of patrolling.
Yeah. I love this idea, though, that the dad just kind of wanted this half-assed business, just enough to float by, and he's like, it was unfortunately, my sons were actually good at business.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're rich now. And this meant that once a gang of privateers based on the island of Rhodes called the Knights of St. John began working in their area, they felt compelled to put their effort towards combating them as pirates themselves. It also probably offered a lot more money, but really they also just really hated those Knights of St. John fuckers. At this point, Arouge and Ilias, who were inseparable, operated in the Levant, which is an area of the sea covering from Anatolia to Egypt and Syria.
Of course.
Cair stayed close to his home with his own ship in the Aegean Sea. Ishak, the oldest brother, stayed in Lesbos managing the family finances, so he was Fredo, basically. Early on, Arouge was the most successful and notorious pirate of all the brothers. He spoke multiple languages, including all the Mediterranean languages and dialects that patrolling these seas would require. Him and Ilias were doing pretty well for themselves until one day, returning from an expedition to Tripoli, his ship got captured by the Knights. Ilias died in the battle, and Arouge was seriously wounded. He lost his left arm, and eventually that arm would be replaced with a silver prosthetic, and earn Arouge the impossibly clever nickname of Silver Arm.
Yeah.
Arouge was a prisoner for the Knights for 3 years until Cair tracked down his location and executed a daring rescue for his brother. More pissed at the Knights than ever, Arouge presented himself before the Prince Sezadi Korkut and convinced him to get him some ships so that he could lash back at the Knights, attacking Christian islands of Rhodes, Malta, and Crete. Arouge had already his notorious reputation before he had gotten kidnapped, and now that you come back from the dead after 3 years with a silver arm, like, the dude kind of was a living legend, as far as the sea.
But it makes it sound cooler, because it's like he's got a silver arm, but you got to understand that, especially then, the silver arm was relatively useless, because it's not a robotic arm, it's just...
Yeah, but fuck it, you know it looked cool. You know they made it look cool.
Well, and I'm already picturing him using it like the Captain America shield to like block shots and stuff.
So the prince, kind of was, like, hey, this guy's a big deal. Sure. He gave him all these resources and told him to keep fucking up the Knights' territories and trade routes. The prince gave up the resources. Arouge would take the ships and bombard castles, take other of the Knights' ships for his own. He was doing pretty well until one day he returned from one of his voyages and found the prince had fled to Egypt to avoid being killed in a succession dispute. And Arouge was like, fuck, people know me and him were bros. I gotta get out of here. But the prince still wielded a lot of influence in Egypt and got Arouge an audience with the Sultan there, who gave Arouge even more ships. So the dude's just like building up a fucking tiny army.
Yeah, an armada.
Because everybody's like, hey, you're good at making life hard for these guys. Arouge left Egypt for Tunisia and made the island of Jerba. It's one of those classic DJs that I can't ever fucking figure out. Anyway, he made this island his base of operations. And so they have this little navy army. And then they contacted the Sultan of Tunisia, who was more than happy to let them use the valuable port of La Goulette to move their product through for just the price of a third of their profits. Which sounds like a lot, but when you consider, like, if it's a strategic port and you're in good with the local government, most pirates would take a deal like that, for sure. So the arrangement went well, and the brothers preyed on Spanish, Portuguese, and Italian ships mostly. So for the most part, the local authorities were totally fine leaving them alone, even if other people got, caught in the wake of it. Around this time, that's when Arouge started to be called Barbarossa, or Redbeard. In 1516, the brothers went for a massive attack on Algiers and took the city. At this point, the Ottoman Empire saw an opening here to expand their empire into the Middle East and North Africa, and began offering the brothers even more financial and political support. Arouge became governor of Algiers, and Caire became an admiral. All very official for people who really spent the better part of their lives just taking shit.
Right.
But as high in stature as they were now, this peak for the three brothers only lasted about 2 years. Like, you can't live that kind of life where you're essentially waging a piracy war against entire nations and not expect it to blow back on you. The Spanish sought to reclaim Algiers, and Arouge died in the battle. More troubling for Caire, who had to step into his brother's role, was that the Spanish were throwing the whole fucking kitchen sink at the pirates. A massive naval army challenged them this time, and the numbers they had wouldn't be enough. Caire petitioned the Sultan Selim of the Ottoman Turkish Empire for even more aid in return for his fleet's loyalty. His request was successful, but far from a clean sweep, as they wouldn't drive the Spanish off until 1529. So it took him over a decade to keep the city. It took so long that Selim died during the fight, and Caire had to pledge his loyalty to his successor to make good on the agreement. This successor, Suleiman, appointed Caire, who was now taking on his brother's title of Barbarossa, as admiral-in-chief, and began to use him as basically this fuck the Spanish doomsday device. By 1538, the fleet he had given Barbrossa had all but wiped out any ambitions the Spanish had of taking over the eastern Mediterranean. In 1544, the French asked Suleiman for help with Spain, and Suleiman sent Caire to basically keep fucking their shit up for the French.
It's like, hey, you like killing Spanish people,
like,
right?
Yeah, like, we got the guy just for that.
I know you've been bored down here. You've kind of driven them out, but France needs some help. And he's like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and while all this is going on, like, you know, they're still running their business. So it's like, yeah, we're going to war, but for them, it's like there's a lot of profit in war. Certainly, the Barbarossa brothers had been brilliant naval minds, but a lot of their success had to do with like making the right allies at the right time. The Emperor of Spain even sent a special agent to try to persuade him to switch sides, but knowing that his strength lied with his, you know, massive Ottoman loyal fleet, he cut the messenger's head off with a scimitar. But Barbarossa was a pirate to his core throughout all this, so like I said, these weren't just battles for him, they were kind of part of his business operation. So much so that any prisoners, which got as high as 9,000 people by 1544, were more goods in his mind to sell into slavery than, you know, the product of, you know, the
of course.
Casualty of war.
Yeah, that's the thing is, it's easy to kind of romanticize piracy, even though it's weird in and of itself because it's murder and theft. But yeah, a lot of them also operated in slave trades. So
yeah. And this became the blueprint for a lot of the Ottoman Empire's naval force, honestly. Despite whatever terror or havoc they wreaked on the ocean, like many pirates followed in Redbeard's footsteps and became admirals just by doing what they would have gladly done anyway. This is kind of a shorter one, and like I wish it took like a dramatic arc where you could be like, and this is how Redbeard's life turned out, but like as far as a pirate's life, he lost two brothers, but he retired peacefully in Constantinople in 1545. He left his son to rule Algiers. He would dictate his memoirs in his final days and died in a seaside palace in 1546. He was buried in a tall mausoleum that stands to this day in Istanbul. So, like, I wanted to tell this one because, like,
what's interesting to me is and this might be where you're going with it, but I like to cut you off and talk over you when it's your... But it sounded like they used the excuse of like, oh, these pirates moved into our area. And it's like, let's take care of them and then become even bigger pirates.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, like that's the thing. Like they weren't fighting for their homeland. It was like, hey, these guys are kind of, they're taking our profits by stealing from our ships. And two, what a business model. We could be doing that,
Yeah.
So, like, I wanted to kind of tell this story because, like, so many Pirates Tales don't really show you, like, the side of it where it's like you were either criminal or legitimate, like, almost entirely based off of location and who was being hurt or helped by what you were doing at the time. So there's, like, all this romanticizing, and you and me, we love pirate stories, like, for sure, but for all the romanticizing about freedom and the high seas, like, it was a really politically influenced business operation for many captains and crews. And if they didn't treat it as such, if they didn't think about who they were stealing from and where they were doing it, like, those were the pirates that didn't last long and almost certainly didn't get to retire in a palace.
Yeah, and that's what, and we've talked about that with a couple other aspects of piracy too. You have your notorious pirate. Some of the most notorious pirates only operated for 2 or 3 years before being killed or whatever.
Yeah.
But like you said, and it applies to a lot of different professions in life. But you had your pirates that were just like murder, plunder, just wreak havoc, live it up while you can. And then you had the ones that were like, this is a business. We're going to run it as such. But some of that has to do with luck too. If that, I forget where you said he was originally from, the guy that fled to Egypt, but still had enough power to help him, like, meet with whoever the Sultan or whoever down there. Yeah. If that didn't happen, say he had gotten murdered before he could flee, that could have toppled their whole
He wouldn't
run.
have had it in with somebody. Yeah.
Yeah. Or later when they're trying to fight the Spanish off for so long that their inn at that point just dies, I assume of natural causes or whatever. If his successor decided, like, I don't want any part of this, they would have been screwed there too. But I imagine, that can come off as luck, but it sounds like they really had their finger on the pulse of stuff going on. And
like, make yourself useful to, to the, you got to know how to pick a winner and then prove that you can provide a service to that winner. So, like, the successor, he's not going to tell Redbeard, like, no, we don't want your help, because he's already, like, proving, like, hey, if you give me what I need, I can fucking all but destroy the Spanish fleet in these waters.
Well, and the second part of that I'm guessing comes into play is you realize too, if you say we're not going to support you, then suddenly that guy's your enemy, and there's probably some fear there too, because you can see what he can do.
Yeah.
And you can never be sure too, if you say we want to withdraw our support, if those ships will be like, we're coming home, or if they'll say, fuck you, we're loyal to this guy now. Mm-hmm. So that probably, a lot of it, being good at what you do helps.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting that they were smart enough, because a lot of people throughout history, like when you said Spain came to him and tried to win him over. And I'm sure in the short term, that probably would have been a huge financial gain for him. He would have never retired in a palace, because what always happens is once your usefulness for Spain is done, they're not loyal to you. You spent decades killing their own people.
Right. But, I mean, it was a lot easier for them to align themselves with kind of the closer, powers that be to those waters and repel, an outside force than it would have been to join up with Spain, go back to the, like, hometown waters and just get, like, try to take it over for an invading fleet. Like, it'll always be easier to kind of repel one. Like, it took them I kind of abbreviated it, but to get Algiers initially was a pretty hard fought battle from Spain. So, like, I doubt, like, Redbeard or his crew had any interest in, like, being an attacking army again. And even when they went to help the French, that was to go up and repel Spain again. It was basically just a story of this awful pirate army fucking everything up for Spain. Every empire-based conquest they tried to do, these pirates would show up and they would be like, fuck, they're even up here? Like,
I'm curious. That first group, what was it? The Knights of St. John or the Knights of John or something? I don't.
Yeah, the Knights of St. John.
St. John. I wonder, were they Spanish by any chance? Does it mention that, or were they?
They just say they were like a Christian, based like privateer group. So there might have been
a funny phrase.
From a few nations.
Christian murderers and plunderers, which sounds weird, but isn't entirely too common. But
well, you almost said Christian, like the way I would say, like I'm from California. You know,
yeah.
like doesn't actually mean anything.
Yeah. But what I was wondering is if he had never got captured and got his arm, the one was the Aragon of Middle Earth,
Aragon, the dragon.
Yeah. But anyway, silver arm. If he had never gotten his silver arm and the other brother survived initially, like it's interesting in a story in my head to go through these different points and to see where it could have gone wrong or gone different and wonder how that would have changed things. I was fully expecting you to say that like this was leading to somebody, if his family lives on their own island. It seems like if I'm trying to get back at pirates, like maybe I'd go attack that island and take out the family business just for vengeance.
So you'd fuck up their dad's like pottery shack while the brothers are living in like a palace on another island.
Yes, because I'm petty and vengeful.
You think they would give a shit? Like,
it depends on what their
relationship is. They'd be like, why are they attacking that little fucking island? And why is that little man on the island yelling for us to help him? But it was also interesting because, like, like I had heard, obviously, the name Redbeard, but I never really knew it was, like, a combination identity of these brothers, Yeah,
and you don't picture when you hear Redbeard because you're stereotypical pirate, and then things like Blackbeard, and we've heard of Bluebeard and that kind of stuff. So you picture the Caribbean pirates, and of course these are Middle Eastern, Mediterranean. There was a ton of piracy in that area, but we tend to not focus on that. We focus on the tropical pirates, New World pirates.
Yeah, on this show it's like either that or we've done like sort of Far East, like Japan, Chinese. Yeah. But when you think about it, like piracy, especially in that sort of Middle Eastern Sea region, like in the 1400s and 1500s, that's where like the trading was happening. Yeah. So like that's definitely where, if you were trying to make big money, that's the thing. They weren't trying to like stop the fucking Knights of St. John because like, out of goodness of their heart, like we were talking about, is like that we can make a lot more money if we just take everybody else's money.
That was a turn for me because at the beginning it did sound like they were just like, oh, our family business is in the area and we can't have these no good nicks, these ruffians moving into our waters. Let's repel them. It was more like, hey, this looks like it's lucrative, but we can't coexist, so let's take over. Like, we're pirates now, Dad.
Gradually, like, at least through their image, distorting it to be like, no, we are just taking from these bad guys, and and it doesn't say how much. Like you said, maybe they did leave like local ships alone, but I have a hard time believing that.
Yeah, well, they I imagine, given the ending and the longevity of them, if they probably didn't cause too much trouble, because no matter how useful you are to somebody, if you also are causing problems, they're going to tend to not stay loyal to you. So there probably was a bit of that. But I bet you competitors, they muscled out probably running like protection type racket, but a lot of that kind of stuff, I imagine.
Yeah. But yeah, if you think about it, piracy was like the first days of organized crime.
Yeah. No, that's what, and I actually have one or two stories sitting in my like possible use folder for piracy in that region, and I was a little afraid this was going to be one of those, and then I'd be like, you bastard, and I have to go in and delete it, but it wasn't. So there may one day, there's one in particular that's been sitting there, and I think it's a really neat story, but it's a hard one to work up, and so it may or may not ever get told. It's been sitting there for a very long
Pirate
time.
story never been told before.
Yeah. But
Steve's journeys in the Middle Eastern waters.
I was also thinking, you're talking about all this piracy in the Mediterranean, and there's these port towns and whatever. Like, imagine being on a more rural, like, farmstead or whatever, you know, and just, like, how weird it would be if you could go down to the beach and you're just, like, collecting shells. You're like, oh, off in the distance, there goes another pirate ship. But knowing that you're relatively safe because you're not an area, you know, if you're not in an urban center and you're not shipping, you're not generally a target for pirates to come raid. Like,
yeah,
it'd almost be like the storm chasers. You watch a tornado from, you know, going across the fields in Oklahoma or something. You're just like, oh, there goes some pirates to murder people. Like,
well, look at that barn being carried away.
Billy, stop mooning them.
Yeah, and that's actually a good idea. That's something that maybe we should look into for future topics.
Piracy?
Is like, you know, regular bandits and shit, you know, throughout history, you know, the ones who didn't sell, the type of people who would fuck up a farmstead, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the problem. You probably didn't care about the pirate ship sailing by in the distance because you're too busy being murdered by, like, a roving band of thieves.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that was the thing about this story is just like, you know, and it happens a lot with our history ones where I'm reading it and getting, like, the notes together, and I'm just like, man, like, the more shit changes, the more it stays the same, really. Like,
yeah, just the methods are different, but yeah,
it's because it's literally just like, you know, the reigning authorities' whim of who, you know, who's legitimate and who's, like, a fucking criminal. And
well,
you know,
honestly, that was a thought that crossed my mind while you were talking too, specifically at the beginning, because they played maybe a cameo role in the story in the overall grand scheme of things. But you were talking about the Knights of St. John. It's like, all I could think was, I wonder what, like, their side of the story is. You'll never get it because they weren't the winners, so there's probably not a whole lot of record of it.
But it does specify they were privateers, so they were given the approval by somebody, right? Know? So I'm sure they had the perspective of like, hey, we're legit.
Yeah, they're the good guys, and these fucking brothers that keep coming up here, they're interfering in our operations.
Yeah. I don't know, though. Like, it's we haven't actually, for as much as we like it, we haven't done too many piracy stories on this show. But I feel like every time we do, like, the picture of pirates becomes a little more clear to me. Mm-hmm. You know, because
it's easy. Like I said, we all have the Hollywood vision of pirates, and that's why it's one of those. It's almost the same disclaimer we give with, like, serial killers, where it's like, they're interesting, but don't confuse that with, like, don't romanticize them. Yeah. Right. And even in a case where, well, like we said, there's no clear, like, they were the good guys or the bad. They're the good guys of their story, and that's the story we got. But again, to point out that it's like, oh yeah, you know, they repelled, they defended and got Spain on, and then out of their territory, and also were trading human slaves that they took captive. It's like, yeah, that's not a good guy hero move.
Yeah, and I mean, and also, you know, places the Ottoman Empire was taken over wasn't the Ottoman Empires to take over. You know,
no, they're one of the notoriously bloodthirsty expansions throughout history.
Yeah, so it's not like, you know, it wasn't just naval-wise, it was a repulsion as far as, like, the war, but the goals of who they were serving were domination in the same way that Spain was. That was just the time it was. Like, you know, nations were just... the nations wanted the world, and
thank God that's stopped now, right?
Well, fuck, I don't think anybody actually wants the world. Like, it's a pain in the ass. Except those we call leaders.
Leaders like the the European measurement of liquid.
Yeah. We elect our liters.
Take a liter of cola.
A liter of cola. Whatever. We're out of steam. We're done talking about this. It's over. This didn't go well at all.
Yeah, all the vitamins and caffeine from your game fuel. We've scientifically proven game fuel will up your game for 38 and a half minutes.
But not really. I'm still tired as fuck. Imagine if this was actually an energy drink.
How's your accuracy, though?
Bad.
Like-
I played a Call of Duty game, and the guy on the other team had a KD of like 82 and 3. So, and I'm not joking. Like I think he was cheating, or I'm just that fucking god awful at a video game. But all I know is Game Fuel didn't help me there.
No,
and it promised.
It didn't even like soften the blow.
No. That's why they need to make a pirate game where I can play as Redbeard, and then we can really test this shit out.
I'm still waiting for that real good. There's some okay pirate games, but there's still not that real good.
No one's nailed it, you know, because they haven't had their Game Fuel.
So if you're a game developer listening to this for some reason, stop what you're doing and make a good pirate game.
Make a great pirate. Make my perfect pirate game, please. One perfect pirate game, please.
Please. Without consulting me on the project, just make it exactly how I want it. You
just nail it, you know?
Yeah.
Don't fuck around. Like, I basically did all the work for you here. I told you what I would buy, so.
But, yeah. It all starts with sea shanties.
Yeah, we shouldn't have to tell you that. If you're already behind, it's going to have to be crunch time now, because you needed to be told that we need Drunken Sailor played on loop.
I want to see, where's the space game where as you're flying your crew around like Mass Effect, why aren't there sea shanties there? Like I firmly believe, I believe if you're traveling through space, if we had it for sea, why wouldn't we have it for space, which is just sky sea?
Because all sci-fi stuff, it'll just play some like funky ass electro shit. Yeah. That's what I would listen to as I'm hurling towards the sun.
Or John Williams, you know, like literally he would be there playing the score to like Star Wars or something.
And that's why I'm hurling towards the sun.
The sun.
Anywho, we'll be back next week if we're not inside the sun. Bye.
Toodles.